Hello there, it's Jo Harris, and today we're looking at digital audio tools, in particular podcasting for learning. So what are some technical aspects of digital audio files? Well, it's an example of read-write web. It tends to be owned by individuals or groups, and it can be online free property. It tends to be user-generated, which can be of a personal nature or professional, and generally we upload an MP3 file to the web to get an address so that we can embed it other digital mediums. And to do so you generally need an account, and it's very good to keep good archiving of these digital files in somewhere like Wikispace or Dropbox or Google Drive, for example. Create these audio files on your home computer or with apps. I use Audiobow, which is an iTunes app, and I also use an iTunes app called Podcast to listen to audio files. And you can also use the good old-fashioned dictaphone with a microphone. And obviously you need an MP3 player that will be able to play that MP3 audio file, so you can listen to it. And it's basically accessible if you have an internet connection and you have permission to use. And sometimes you might subscribe to an app like I do, which is Pandora, and I listen to music on Pandora, which is an app that I access from iTunes. And you can also purchase audio files from iTunes, but if you're using others' audio files you obviously need to give credit and outline to listeners where you source these audio files from. And you can, once you have that audio file, you can download it because you own it and use it on other devices such as an MP3 player, or you can stream it over the internet like with that Pandora app. So what can digital audio files do? Well, usually they're one creator, and so one person records, edits, erases, amends the audio file. And so it is one-way communication because the audio file is static. You can give it tags for googliness, and you do tend to record for a specific audience who's going to listen to it, and the reader interacts via their auditory modality. And with purpose, auditory files can be very powerful, and they do support our learning environments, particularly for those who are visually impaired. And it's a great example of multi-literacy, particularly the auditory literacy or oral literacy. So what is the definition of oral literacy? Well, in child development, our babies listen and they learn to speak through listening to pitch, tonality and rhythm of the English language, and it aids in speech development, and it is an example of our multi-sensory world. And to be orally literate we need to be able to listen, which is really important for our brain development because 60% of our communication time is listening, and we retain 25% of what we hear. And that was from this source, Julian Treasure, 5 Ways to Listen on TED Talks. And we make meaning from sound, and conscious listening creates understanding, and that's from Julian Treasure. So when we're listening we're screening because we can't listen to every single sound, so we're editing the sounds for our intention, and we audit for listening for patterns. For example, white noise, people don't hear white noise, and we do delete. But having presence, and a great way for, I guess, yoga or relaxation is using presence, which means that you just listen to all the sounds that are about you, because that then places you physically in space and in time, and it gives our other senses a chance to defrag in a way from being so overloaded. And so when we're listening we are screening, because if we're screening and we're choosing what we screen, we're being active in our screening, whereas we're just going about it and we don't realize that there's a plane flying overhead because we live in a flight path, that's passive screening, for example. So the key here is Stephen Covey's Seek First to Understand. And there is a YouTube clip which I have listed below as additional resources. And when we're screening we're also listening for differences, and as I said, for the white. And listening is very emotional, and it does trigger fear, love, and also sadness, a whole range of emotions based on previous experience. And imagine if you're English as a second language, you will be really listening hard. The other flip of oral literacy, apart from listening, is obviously speaking. And that's important for our presentation skills, our vocabulary development, and particularly for English as a second language. And I can't help but think of storytelling, which is one of the most ancient forms of human communication which is utilised in audiobooks in a way, and sound, especially when recorded or transmitted or reproduced, is an audio file. That's what the definition is. There are many legal considerations. It's important to make sure that we reference and we have permission, and that we're very careful with our copying and sharing of audio files, and we can access audio files under the Creative Commons license, and obviously sharing with their author's permission, and we do not breach copyright laws if we do so. So what learning outcomes do auditory digital files give a teacher? Well, they're fantastic for learning intent of exploring and challenging and assessing our oral listening skills and speaking skills, and fantastic training in creating and sharing individual work or group work of auditory files. It enables us to assess students, and it gives teachers as well. We can create and record our lecture, for example. We can access those things in the library. We can actually do an interview with an expert panel, and it's very easy to share. It's really important as teachers that we teach our kids how to understand the power of sounds, to recognize and use that power and manipulate and transform digital media so that they can distribute. And a great way of that is podcasting. And we can adapt those auditory files to different forms, and that's from the 21st Century Literacy Summit, A Global Imperative. And obviously it's important with listening and audio files. It's also part of speaking, because we can speak and record those files, and listening, as I said before. Now, it's important to remember that our students are obviously digital natives, and they have fun with this medium and tool because they're creating something, and they get that instant reward and feedback, and it's very learner centered because they do love audio, they love music, they love phones. And if you've ever been on public transport recently, you will see that young people create, and people of all generations really, create a private bubble in the public space by their earphones and what they're listening to. And what is the best feature about audio files is it's so transportable and it's so flexible to download, and everyone has a device pretty much, I reckon, with an MP3 player in it, even if it's just your phone or an iPod or an iPad or one of those cheap MP3 players. And it's great for civic success, great for critical thinking for our students, because they need to think of their audience and the message and what medium is best. And I think of digital audio files as like a way of creating a radio station, because it can be very creative. You can do a project where you have an oral explanation of a topic. Students conduct interviews and a question and answer sessions. They can deliver information like a news story or events, or question and answer. It's great for entertainment, great for characters, for example, Voki and comic characters. And how do we actually teach oral literacy? Well, it's about listening, and this is a tool to teach listening, and it's from Julian from TED TV, and he says we need to reset and recalibrate, and if we just have 3 minutes of silence for the day, that's all it takes for us to reset. What channels of listening? Quality listening. Teach students to savour the mundane sounds like the hidden choir of crickets and insects, and to be conscious of our listening positions and playing with those filters that enables us to switch from active to passive listening, to reductive listening, to expansive listening, critical listening, to empathic. And that's from Julian Treasure on TED Talks, with 5 ways to listen better. And if I view this tool through the SAMR lens, an example that I would give is that in substitution level, we listen to a podcast online versus listening to a radio. Augmentation is we embed a podcast or audio file into a blog. The next step up, we create and use audio files and edit them. And then the last step at redefinition is we create a podcast and insert it into a Glogster, and then or create an online script. Are some ways that we could use this tool. So let's look more specifically at podcasting as an audio tool. And podcasting to me is on-demand radio substation that I can subscribe to. That's how I position it in my memory bank. For example, ABC podcasting, iTunes, or SBS, for example. It includes audio files as well as video, because the two are combined in video, moving images as well as audio file. It's an audio MP3 file. It can be real time, like in Skype and on a webinar or a Blackboard session. And there are ways of recording in that we create, plan, through a storyboard, and then we record, we review the file. And there are some tools that we can use like Audacity or the Audioboo app, which I mentioned before, GarageBand, PodGuide Generator, and the equipment that we need really is very simple: a microphone, and most iPods and iPads have a built-in microphone, which makes that really easy. We need a program to record and edit the audio file and then produce it like Podomatic, and then store it in the cloud, and then we get the link to embed it, and then we can share it via the internet because people have subscribed to your audio file. And it's awesome for language, to learn languages, to listen to experts, and we can download podcasts by RSS feeds, and it's a form of mobile learning, which means learning on the go. And the name is derived from, in 2004, with the increased availability of portable audio and video players, casting generally now encompasses a diverse set of terms and specific uses such as autocasting, blogcasting, learncasting, MMS, podcasting, voice casting, blah, 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 blah. There's so many terms for audio files. And if I just look at a SWOT analysis of the audio files, you can see that the strengths are, I consider to be mobile learning, the availability of devices to listen to audio files and record them. There's multiple providers. It's highly portable, it's cheap to produce, it can be a group or individual activity, and the creative possibilities are endless, and it's a great example of how we can focus on embedding and building this oral literacy skills in our students. The weaknesses are that if there's a kinesthetic learner, they will be writing notes when they're listening to an audio file, so kind of a double up, but then that's how they like to learn, so that's cool. And it is a new technology for some. The opportunity that I see about podcast provides us as educators is that it's an additional modality tool of the oral literacy. It's an opportunity, if we record a lecture, for students to review the lecture to gain deeper understanding of the content, access to experts at the push of a button, and it's like a radio station that we can tune into, so we can choose who we want to subscribe to. And the thread is, it's not just one solution, it is one of many solutions that we should use in our classroom. So if we just use audio files, we would be excluding the kinesthetic and the visual learner by doing so. Okay, that's it. I hope you've enjoyed it. Look forward to talking to you soon. Bye for now.